Well, I'm not getting no clients. I mean, I have an online profile on Psychology Today. I don't understand why people are not coming. They're not coming for the same reason they can't see your Instagram profile, because you ain't posting. And when you don't post, you can't be found. And even when you do post, there's only a percentage of people who might see your stuff.
Funny how the story goes, little hope but bigger dreams.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Let's talk about what are the 4 stages to launching a successful, abundant, and thriving multi-six-figure private practice. Hey, what's up, y'all? My name is Dr. TK. So let's go ahead and jump into it. And so, if you are new to my podcast, I have been talking about the 4 launch phases that was originally developed by Jeff Walker. I will pop up the book right here and also drop it in the show notes. But this is an old school book that still holds to its truth today. And so, first, I'm going to go over what the 4 launch phases are. And then I'm going to circle back and we are going to go over how you could execute using these launch phases with a successful private practice. So the first phase is what's called the pre-launch. So think about the pre-launch if we're looking at like a movie dropping as a trailer, right? You're sitting in another movie theater or maybe you're sitting at home and all of a sudden you see a trailer with like maybe even your favorite actor. You see a trailer of a part 2 and you like, oh my gosh, when does that come out? But they didn't give you little to nothing in the trailer. So you waiting for probably the second trailer to drop. Okay. So that's the pre-launch, is that something is coming and that it's juicy. All right. The second phase of a launch is a pre-launch. So a pre-launch is, you know what is coming. You are given the date that it is coming. You are even provided with details that is within the launch, but you cannot invest in it yet. Or if it's like tickets, then you cannot go purchase the tickets yet. Then we actually have the third phase, the launch. So the launch is you show up to the movie theater and you watch the movie. You invest in the coaching program because they opened up enrollment. You open up the doors to your private practice and then you start seeing clients. Okay, so we're going to come back to that. Then in stage 4, that's where you debrief your launch. Now, I'm going to be honest, the 4th phase is the most missed phase. Why? Because we have to slow down and we have to look back at and evaluate what worked and what did not work. Now, some people do debrief a launch or a special period in their business. However, they may do it like when their tax person tells them to do it. They do it at the end of the year. They do it months after something goes wrong, right? And so let's circle back and talk about how these launch phases are going to be crucial to you understanding what you're supposed to be doing in every single phase. So in the pre-launch, let's put a context around launching a profitable private practice, or for some of you, relaunching your private practice because maybe you want to evolve your practice. Maybe you want to evolve your niche. Maybe you actually want to niche down. Okay. Maybe you want to raise your rates. Maybe you want to shift the environment. You want to split between online or in person. Okay. So when you think about a pre-launch, you do want to have a launch date in mind so that you can go backward. So always start with the end goal in mind. So let's just say if I wanted to launch my private practice to get my first client or get a new client 90 days from now, because is it possible? Of course it is, but you do want to have some things in place. So because I want to launch my private practice in 90 days, I'm now going to work backward. So with the pre-launch, you don't have to tell everyone that you are doing something different with your existing practice, or you don't have to tell people that you're even opening up a private practice, but maybe you start improving on your presence online. Maybe you start focusing on your personal brand. So maybe part of your pre-launch is that people get to know, like, and trust you. Who do you serve? Who do you love to serve? How do you do therapy? What is your, what we call in our programs, your framework, also known as your special sauce? Okay. Do you have any openings coming up? How long have you been doing this thing called therapy? As a provider, you can really spend this time just reintroducing yourself over and over again. But here's the thing, you don't have to keep reintroducing yourself like in one whole long audio or video. Break it up. So, for example, pull out your resume because there's a lot of things that people would love to know about us in terms of how we got into the field. What is our experience working with not just that particular client, but just with people? Because some people don't want someone who just hopped off the boat of getting licensed. And we all know that we went to school and did all these hours before licensure, but the general public does not understand our training regimen. So, what would happen if you took the time to first pull out your resume and look at every single place that you worked at? And what I would do is look at places that I've worked at that mirror the clientele that I want to serve, even if it's just 50%, even if it's just the gender, even if it's just the age group, even if it's just what you did with them in therapy, but maybe you didn't want to see the kids, you would prefer to see the adults. But ultimately, you had to introduce those clients to therapy. You did the intake with those clients for therapy. You got them graduated ideally from therapy, or at least you helped them make progress. So share your journey. What have you done with people who look like the clients that you have served? Don't spend all of your time doing these videos on your credentials. I'm not going to say no one cares, but let's be real, no one cares. If you're licensed, you're licensed. I don't really care about you going to school for 50,000 years. I don't really care about you having 50 jobs. What did you do in those jobs to help the people at those jobs? So pre-launch for private practice is beefing up or introducing your personal brand. Who are you? Something else that you can do in this phase is introduce people to your workspace. Show people the parts of the workspace that you don't mind showing. If it's your computer, of course, make sure you de-identify information, but you can do shorts, you can do mini clips, you can talk about redecorating your home office, you can talk about how you get camera ready, you can talk about the clothes that you're wearing, because some of the clients that you see, that's what you're working with them on, is actually improving how they show up in their life. All right, let's go to phase two. So phase two is the pre-launch. In private practice, this is where you are revving up to actually see clients. So if you hadn't done it in phase one, depending on your stage in practice, you definitely want to do it in stage two. What is the it? The it is getting that back office in order and continuing to market yourself and your expertise and why people should see you to help them fix their problem in your practice. So we have two levels here. We want to continue to market our brand. We want to showcase how we can solve someone's problem. So you can do that in part one, in the pre-launch. But what's most important was what happens behind the scenes. These are things you don't have to show if you don't desire to do it, but these days you could actually take people on a journey. So what would phase two look like with documentation? So I'm going to walk you through some questions, okay? So do you have the actual consultation questions queued up somewhere? Now, what we teach our clients when they're in our mentoring program is how to automate a lot of this stuff, which means that you're going to be putting a lot of stuff together on the back end, on the forefront. However, you will reap benefits in the long run because think about it. If you don't get your stuff in order, you're going to continue repeating the same task over and over again. And I don't know about you, but I look at time as currency. The time that I spend doing anything is worth a particular dollar amount, or it's worth time freedom. Either way, I'm gaining something or I'm losing something. So what documentation do you also need in place to onboard the client? So the first phase is, of course, making sure that the client is a good fit. The second phase of seeing a client is actually onboarding the client. all the documentation that is required. Now, if you've never been in private practice, don't act like you don't know how to open up a chart. You have been to a training site, and don't let them have had a government money, federal funding, Medicaid, Medicare, Medi-Cal, all those things. Because you were probably, I know back in my day, I'm kind of speaking my age now, is that we had what's called paper charts. And paper charts were, even if there was an EHR in the background, they would still make you check off everything that's supposed to be included in a chart. And then your supervisor, even if you're licensed, has to review it to make sure that all things are in the order or in the EHR where they should be and that they're written up correctly. So I want you to sit back and ask yourself, from my last training site or my last job, what were the required documents? I mean, if you have a job, look at the checklist. This is not taking from a company because for the most part, all agency work is the same. The only difference is with your private practice, you can pick and choose what documents you do or don't want to include. For example, what makes private practice stand out is that you should have a credit card authorization form on file where if you use Simple Practice, quick plug, if you want to earn a couple of $100 and you want to get a 30-day plus free trial with Simple Practice, a great EHR that I've been running my private practice on for 12 plus years, then you definitely want to check out the description box, the show notes, and get that link so you not only get a free trial, but if you decide to sign up, they will also send you some gifts. Okay. That is equivalent to, I know, over $100. Okay. So you're building your business and earning money. That is a quick win. All right. Let's get back to this topic. All right. So with your EHR, with onboarding a client, most of these forms are actually in the EHR. So you don't even have to curate these forms from scratch. Now, do you want to personalize them? Yes. Okay. So that's onboarding a client. Now, this is something that a lot of therapists don't think about. How do you graduate or send a client somewhere else? So there's two types of ways we can end treatment. The ideal way is to graduate a client from treatment. That means that they've done what they're supposed to do. You've helped them solve their problem. It doesn't mean that they're perfect, but they're functional. And maybe you move them to a as needed schedule. Okay. So when you move them to an as needed schedule, typically what I do, rule of thumb, you can do whatever you choose, but this is what I do personally, is that I have a 1-year rule. If you leave and you don't have something that you would like to discuss or just do a refresher because there's no timeline on it and you're gone for over 12 months, when you or if you choose to come back and do a booster session, or if something else came up and you want to assess to see if you need to start treatment again, you will have to sign the forms over. You don't have to do the intake form over, but I will do an updated progress note clearly to update anything that needs updating, like, for example, the diagnoses or the treatment plan, right? So the graduation is one thing. Now, the other side of a client no longer seeing you in services is that, well, I guess it's 3 reasons. The second one is they, you feel like they're not a good fit or you have to refer them out for whatever reason. For example, when I went on maternity leave, we were doing all in-person therapy and some of my clients did not want to go online at that time. This was back in 2017. And I went on out of nowhere bed rest due to complications with my pregnancy. So some of my clients, a handful, said, you know what, I've been in therapy for a long time. I'm going to choose just to use the tools that you gave me. I'm good. And they were good. They actually graduated treatment when I came back from maternity leave because they realized that they weren't trusting themselves to use the skill set that I had taught them. So it was almost like a blessing in disguise. However, some clients actually went over to another provider in my office until I came back from maternity leave. So that means that there needs to be documentation to give to that other therapist as like a treatment summary. The client needs to sign a release of information so I can have a consultation with that therapist. So these are other forms and documentation where a lot of them are in the EHR. But the question is, do you have a checklist of the forms for all these phases of services? Now, the last category is something that we don't like to entertain, but it is prematurely terminating treatment, which means that a client may ghost you. All of a sudden, they just say, I don't want to be in therapy no more, and they really don't give you the opportunity to talk them through. Yes, all of this is in the second phase because you want to make sure that at least the consultation and the onboarding are in place so that when you find a great match of a client, you can actually start seeing them and they don't have to wait until you get your life together. Okay. So in phase 3, the actual launch or relaunch, this is where your calendar is open. This is where you are hosting consultations. This is where you are sending clients paperwork to onboard them. And this is the stage in your practice that will continue until your caseload is full. And the reason why I'm also going over these phases so you can understand them is that a good business owner will never negate that these phases are not important. Because at any given time, if clients fall off or you take a break and you come back, or just the world is tripping and then clients are just randomly dropping off, at times you need to know how to relaunch your practice even to get one client. So during the launch process, this is where you're doing a lot of trial and error. This is where you will pick up on, do you need to update your forms? Did you not price your services accordingly? And this is how therapists end up having even different fee scales for clients because different clients come in at a time. But your launch is very important because this is where you're continuously marketing. You're looking at your back office to make sure everything is okay with the clients that are onboarding. You're also making sure that you are doing their treatment plan, their diagnoses, uploading their intake forms. So there's a lot of overlap, but think about how hard it is for a therapist to start a private practice and they don't have anything I have together, but yet they come to myself or other people who do what I do and they say, well, I'm not getting no clients. I mean, I have an online profile on Psychology Today. I don't understand why people are not coming. They're not coming for the same reason they can't see your Instagram profile, because you ain't posting. And when you don't post, you can't be found. And even when you do post, there's only a percentage of people who might see your stuff. So the only way somebody's going to see your stuff more is if you show yourself more. And it has to be quality, not just this is what my degree is. Now, let's lastly talk about phase 4, which is the debriefing. So for, let's just say, a digital product, and there's different levels. For, let's just say if I'm launching a coaching program and it's open enrollment and closed enrollment or a therapy group, then you would do your debriefing after the launch is over. But a practice is what we would consider maybe an evergreen model. An evergreen model is that it doesn't close down unless, of course, if your practice is full. But even then, you may still build a wait list because maybe some clients are going to graduate in 1 or 2 months. So keep that in mind. So when I look back at debriefing in my private practice, before I honestly even knew what these phases were, I was constantly looking over my marketing, my personal brand story as to why I became a psychologist. Why do I work with a certain population? I continuously embedded that in my content at the time. I had a blog back in the day. I'm not saying you have to have all these things, but I was experimenting and I still experiment to this day. It's just that my business streams of income look very different. So ask yourself, what are increments of time like a treatment plan that you should be reviewing your metrics in your business? Metrics would be, how are your videos or audio podcasts or whatever you're putting online? How is it doing? Is it reaching people? Is it generating people going to a link to get on your calendar? And you may be wondering, well, how do I know where they came from? Well, that should be a question on your consultation form. That should be a question when you meet with them or talk to them on the phone for the consultation. How did you find out about my services? Because you may be missing out on some golden nuggets, whether it be you thank a person, whether it be you go update your profile on an online platform because you realize you are actually getting referrals. But sometimes you don't know because simply you do not ask. So what goes into a debriefing? I would look at content that I'm putting out there and is it delivering value? Meaning, am I engaging with an audience? Are they not just liking it, but is it reaching a good amount of people and are they commenting? Now, sometimes people may not comment on your stuff because you don't tell them to, right? So I will measure the efficiency and effectiveness of my content. I will also look at the efficiency of how people are filling out my paperwork. I will look at the match that I'm getting with my ideal clients, meaning is what I put out there what I'm getting back, because it may be something like in my messaging. I'm also going to look at, am I getting paid on time? I'm going to look at the average dollar amount that I'm getting per client. Now, how do you average out how much you're making? The reason why there is even an average is because some people may get people in their practice at different times. So you may have had a starting rate of $100. Then you realize, you know what, I'm being scared. I'm gonna charge you $125, 3 clients later. And then later down the line, you're charging $200, but then you're also on an EAP panel that averages out about 75. So the way that you find an average is that you look at how many people you have on your caseload. You add up how much each client is paying you or how much the panel is paying you with the copay. You add all those numbers up, then you divide it by how many clients you have on average. And I would do this daily so that you can see what is your highest average day in your practice, but also do it for the week and for the month. So that when your CPA says, how much do you make per hour? What you shouldn't say is, oh, I'm worth $150 an hour, because that's not true. You only got 2 150 clients and everybody else is reimbursing at $50 to $75 because you got on this EAP that pays low, but maybe those clients turn into private pay clients later. But the first 6 sessions, it's paying $75. So you want to know your numbers. You also want to evaluate your schedule. Is it closer to your ideal schedule over time? You want to do a serious debriefing. Now, of course, we walk our clients through all of these phases actually in our private practice mentorship program. If you are a therapist and you want to build a life first business, what that means is you want time freedom. You want flexibility. You don't want to be overwhelmed. You don't want to be tired. You don't want to be burnt out. You want to get paid your worth. You want to be valued as a person and as a therapist. Then I want to mentor you. But in order for you to know that I am the right fit for you, I have put together a 3-part training series for you to check out. All you have to do is go down to the link in the description box in the show notes, sign up, get access, binge listen, binge watch, take notes, and then go ahead and take action. And then we can connect to see if you are a good match for our private practice program, where we will walk you through all of these 4 phases, of course, at a slower pace, because I truly believe in the idea of learning and implementing at the same time so that you can start to see results as like a compounding interest. So if you are new here, welcome. My name is Dr. TK. I am a clinical psychologist and therapist business coach and mentor, and I would love for you to stay connected. And so make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video. And since you made it to the end of this video podcast episode, I would like you to go down to the show notes because you are now part of our abundant end of the podcast episode club. So go down to the show notes and let me know what phase of the private practice launch are you actually in? All right, introduce yourself. Let's connect in the comments, and I will talk to y'all in the next podcast episode. Bye.
Funny how the story goes, little hope but bigger dreams.